Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and record the meeting, guys, because there are some folks who want to view the session after the fact. So we got about 3 minutes. We'll wait the 3 minutes just so everybody can log on. I know that some people are occasionally technology challenged, but hopefully.
Okay, well, this is Joe Lazaro from Miami, Florida.
Hey, Joe, welcome. We got Becky just above you there, so
Okay.
she says it's getting a little cool down there.
Yeah, I just got out of the water. I was skiing this morning before the meeting.
You know what, Joe? I gotta say, excuse my language, but you suck.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Yeah. And I think Brian Crease is coming in also. He's going to be online.
Cool.
Hey, morning, Joe. Neighbor.
I'm going after. Hey, Mr. Goldman, how are you?
Oh, it's really early out here.
Yes, it is. I wondered how you're surviving. Jeff Goldman's in the middle of renovating the inside of his house. And so then he has a party last night.
Wait, he had a party? I didn't know about that party.
It's a good time to have a party then, Jeff, while you're renovating. Nobody will know.
Doesn't matter if you spill anything.
Morning, Will.
Morning, Tony.
Go ahead.
Al Gunlock here from Orlando.
Al,
Rochester in the summer.
Welcome.
Hey, Will, it's Kayla and Steve Ware.
Hey, Kayla. Hey, Cap, how are you guys doing?
We're good. We're here in Arizona.
Good, good. Well, glad you're online.
Morning, Will.
Morning, Connie.
Will, did you mark Marie Fields down?
Marie, I haven't yet. What we're going to do is I'm going to ask everyone to, in the chat window, so if you guys kind of look around while we're sitting here for the chat window, just go ahead and type a message to the group, say here. That way, Bob Harris has agreed to kind of go through this and make sure we give everyone credit for registering. If there's more than one person at your location, for example, Jeff Goldman and Rochelle Maleitner are sitting at the same place. Jeff, if you can just go ahead and just say here and with Rochelle, that way we'll give everybody credit. People are already starting to do it. Thank you, guys.
Why do you think I put it over here?
All right. Well, we're at 7 o'clock. I'd like to keep this thing to 2 minutes. 2 minutes, 2 hours.
2 minutes.
See, it's early. It's early. I'd like to keep this thing to 2 hours. So I'd like to get started. Again, I'm going to go ahead and continue to mute you all. If you need to speak, just unmute yourself. It's not like you can't talk. So feel free to unmute yourself. We'll go through some of the housekeeping things that we'd like to do. So anyway, I'm going to mute you all and get started. So here we go. So anyway, welcome everyone. You should be able to see a screen that shows Drivers Clinic, February 2024. So we have 2 sessions today. The first is an hour on the driver's portal, how to interpret and navigate the data, and that'll be Donal Connolly, and I'll introduce Donal in a bit. The second hour will be on SurePath use, troubleshooting, and review, which I will do. We have over 235 folks currently in the clinic. So that includes not only all of you, but we have the chairs of the Drivers Committee, Chris Eller, the Tech Committee, Jerry Jackson, Rules, Rochelle, Judges and Scorers, Robert Howerton. We also have Dave Allen online, who is our West Tim's guru. So we have a lot of folks here that are available. So if we have any kind of questions, we certainly have the resources to answer. Donal Connolly is with us from Splash Eye. We have James Timothy online from the UK. Let me mention Donal's sitting in France right now, and James is in the UK. Thank you for both of your time. And we have also Jose Antonio Priego, who is our IWWF president, who has also joined us. So anyway, please ask questions at any time. Use the chat to type your question. With regard to chat, as I mentioned earlier, if you're online, go ahead and use chat and just say here. And just if there's someone else there with you who has registered for the clinic, please include their name. There is a function in Zoom which you can raise your hand, which you can find under more, under reactions and raise hand. But if you have a question, you can type it in the chat window. And Elaine is sitting next to me. She will monitor the chat window and we'll try and address your question at the time or an appropriate time during the presentation. If you raise your hand, we will also try and pay attention and recognize that. So anyway, keep making sure I'm on the right screen. Housekeeping. So housekeeping, ensure your membership status is current and you've taken Safe Sport. So that's complete. So you can always check that by logging on to the member dashboard at USA Water Ski. If you want credit for the clinic, make sure you've paid your $10 fee. And you can do that via the link, and it's PayPal me. Make sure that you get the correct PayPal account. There are about 5 different USA Water Ski PayPal accounts out there. Some of them are from prior folks who have used them for practice for nationals and whatever, but make sure it's the one that says USA Water Ski. Eastern region drivers, your clinic fee will be paid for by the Eastern region. Western region, regular and senior only, will be paid by the Western region. So we got to figure out how to get the Midwest and the Southern and the South Central to pay for their drivers. So anyway, if you have any of the issues, that USA Water Ski would like you to resolve, please do so this coming week. So let's talk about the driver's portal and all the data that's in the driver's portal. So we all know that SurePath has been used for the last 2 to 3 years in both tournaments and practice. And we've literally tracked thousands and thousands of passes, less so in jump. Donald will be able to give you the exact number, but I know it was mind-boggling in terms of the numbers when we talked even last year. For passes where a SurePath rover has been connected to the IWWF WaterSki Connect server, which Donald manages, that data has been saved and is now available for you to use and to analyze your own personal driving. Over the last year, the IWWF Drivers Committee, and that's comprised of Europe, Pan American region, and the Oceania folks, Australia and New Zealand. We've been working with Donald to build the IWWF Drivers Portal, which is a web-based application that'll give you an easy look to your data. And it's very cool because it's in a very concise and graphical way, which makes it much easier to understand. I want to talk a little bit because this question always comes up. Donald, feel free to, jump in on any of this, but people always want to know who can see my data. The whole goal here is that you see your own data. It's not here for people to check up on you. It's there as a tool for you to improve your own driving. So at the very bottom, I did include something to say audit trail. There is an audit trail. Audit logs record user access, date, time of access, and any individual driver files access. So, we want to make sure that only authorized users use the portal. As an individual, you're provided access to your personal data only. No other driver can access your data. And so you can view passes from any given day or summary over time. Don't talk more about that. The confederations. So each confederation, we have three, I'll call active ones in the 5 in IWWF. So ENA, the European Confederation, will have access only to their driver data. Pan Am will have only access to the Pan Am drivers, and Oceania, which is New Zealand and Australia, will only have access to their data. At this point, we're still in the process. So the only people that have access to your data are you, the confederations. We're looking for them to develop a policy for use. And with respect to national federations who may want to request access to review data, for example, when we nominate drivers for events, could be, world championships or ENA championships or Pan Am championships, we're able to take a look at it and do a little bit of provide some data to folks who are making decisions about who might go drive those events. And then,
sorry, Mark Griffin has a quick question. He just wants to know if this is all going to be available later, and also if they can get a copy of that and a recording of the PowerPoint recording.
Yeah, Mark, the session is being recorded and we'll make that available. I'll probably put it out in Dropbox and provide folks the link, and we'll make the slides available to everyone. So there are folks, as I said earlier, that had signed up, Barry Young being one of them, that just sent me a note and said, hey, something came up. Lyman Hardy, who had planned on being here, his sister passed away and he's at her funeral. So, my certainly heart goes out to Lyman. But anyway, this will be recorded and the slides will be available.
Will, can I just butt in there for a second? I think when you talk about the federations having access to the data, right now that means that the chairman of the Oceania Federation and the chairman of the European Federation and the chairman of Pan Am have access to their data. This is not like a big confederation-wide access. So apart from drivers having individual access to their data, right now, only 3 other people have access to data. And I think it is our intention that this year, that's the way it will stay. We'll get a good handle and a good feel for who is requesting data and why. We will handle that as a group, and then we can assess what more needs to be done in future years. But right now, it is a tiny, tiny group of people who have access to that data.
And that's important because we want you to feel, to understand that your data is secure and that, somebody's not going to pull this data out and go use it for some nefarious purpose. So thanks.
Quick question.
Go ahead, Robert.
Quick question on the data that's being stored. You identify that it's through WaterSki Connect. If I'm just using SurePath for a practice session, how is my data being stored, or how do I make sure that it's accessible to the reports and such?
Great question, yeah. Donald.
We will cover it later, but it's as simple as where you normally enter your sanction number in SurePath when you're driving a competition. You just enter anything you want in the same space in SurePath, Bob 123, and that will be recorded in WaterSki Connect and in the portal for you to access. If you don't want your data to go anywhere, you just make sure that sanction ID field in SurePath is blank. So you have full control.
Yeah, and Robert, Will has a screen on that later, so we'll have that available. You'll be able to see how you do it. It's a little bit newer feature. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we want people to use it not only in tournaments, Robert, but we want people to use it in practice. And of course, our goal here is, in order, and we'll talk about this too, you don't have to necessarily be a driver to sign up for the driver's portal. It's available to everyone. Jerry Jackson, who's not a driver, Jerry uses it for practice all the time, and he uses it for the guys that pull him. He uses his own name because he wants to pull up the data and show them what a great job or not that they're doing. So anyway, let's continue. So I will introduce Donal. Donal is Mr. Splash Eye. He's been responsible for Splash Eye Jump, Splash Eye Gates and Slalom, Splash Eye Drive, which is also available for use as a boat path monitoring system, Splash Eye Tricks, and new iTricks. He's been developing water ski software for over 20 years. For IWWF, he maintains the WaterSki Connect server, which essentially does scoring and boat path tracking and does data communications between various systems. And he has been the developer for the IWWF portal that IWWF has so graciously helped us to fund. So with that, you must be a registered driver to access the portal, and I'll turn it over to Donal. Let you share your screen.
Will. Yeah, let me share my screen, please. Okay. So welcome everybody. It's great to see so many people online. I'll try and keep this as short as possible. There's a lot to cover, but we'll get there. I have created some notes to go along with this, which I will be referring to, but it might help some people, if that's the way they work, to look at those online as well, and they can have them for future. So in the chat, I've just sent a link to the notes that I'll be going through as I look at the data. So the purpose of this really is to show you how to use the portal to find the data you want in the way you want to find it, and then what does the data mean. So if you can see my screen in front of you, you go to the driver's portal and log in. We made a conscious decision, security and making sure that you only see your data has been paramount from the very start of this process. So we decided at an early stage that we would implement two-factor authentication all the time for every login. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but it does mean that you're confident that people aren't giving their logins to someone else and using that. So every time you log in, it will send you a 6-digit PIN, 967, which you need to enter before you get in. No, I typed that wrong. There we go. So once you log in, you will see the opening page. Once again, a couple of housekeeping bits. We'll talk a lot about driver identification. And hopefully you have all registered for the portal. You will have received your SurePath PIN. And that is what you use to log in on the rover, so that we are guaranteed that you are you and your data is yours and yours alone. It can't be for someone else. If you want to change that data, you can change it on the My Profile page. I have a PIN here and we can just change that. Any 4-digit PIN can be used. That really is the only thing that you need to change on the portal. We, as part of the registration, we record obviously your name, your AWSA ID, and your email, but they are not stored on the portal. They are stored on a separate CMS system. So it's secure and they're not going anywhere. So if we just flick to the notes, the first page, you see there are 3 places where you can find data. And I'll go through these in a sequence. So there's a place to get quick data, which really we hope people will use, after a day's driving, just to get a quick snapshot of where they were that day. So in the middle of a tournament, you drove Saturday and Sunday morning, before you get in the boat, you take a quick look just to see, was I down the middle? Was I a bit left or right? Those kind of basic information. Because, I've been watching end course videos for about 20 years now. I spent a long time on the European and the World Tournament Councils, with my main responsibility being end course. I developed Splash Eye Drive before GPS was around to try and solve some of the problems we had. And from my experience, the most basic issue that we have with BoatPath is a driver jumping in a new boat and just not having the picture in their head of where center is. And the days of judges calling over the radio to say you're a bit left or a bit right, it doesn't work. Whereas seeing the data, as you see after every path in SurePaths, really helps you find center. But finding a day's summary of your driving can reinforce that and give you a quick snapshot of what you might want to change for the next day's driving. So that'll be the quick data section. Then we've got all options and a new feature in the last week on the portal of a tournament list of data. So we'll jump straight in to our data all options. This will be the standard place you'll go when you're on your desktop or your laptop to see the data. So here we have 2 main sections. One, what kind of data do I want to see? And on the right-hand side, what are the events that I want to see that data for, or the days? Now, a big thank you to Will and also Mario Pigozzi and Glenn Martin, who have kindly allowed me to access their data and show some of it to you because it helps to see some real world data. I promise Will I've picked some good events, so it won't embarrass him. So the simple bit first, and this is where you go most of the time, find data by days. So if I click on a year, down below will be a list of all the days driving that you've done. It comes with a day of the week, a date, and a sanction ID. The sanction ID, if you know it, it's helpful, but if not, you'll work it out by the day of the week and the day that you want to do. Your practice sessions, this is a good example. So there's lots of tournaments here for Will for last year, but also on Tuesday, October 24th last year, Will had a practice session where he simply put 23, 10, 24 into SurePath before he went out to drive, and all that data is available to him here. You can pick one day or many days here simply by clicking on them. If you pick multiple days, it will group all that data together and show to you all. A caveat here with big data, and we are talking about big data here. We've captured hundreds of thousands of passes. Because of the way we drive typically around center, if you start looking at lots and lots of tournaments together, you will find that the results tend to start trending towards the middle because there'll be some left, some right. It all kind of gets down the middle. So if you go and select all your tournaments for the year and look at the data, the results may not be as helpful to you as they would be if you look at a day or a couple of days of driving. So I would normally recommend that people look at 1 or 2 days of driving at a time. So that's what data we want to be returned. And then down here we have how do we want to see that data. So I'll just go back to my slide to show you the information that's here. There's 3 options at the top. First one is just show me the data. Show me all my passes together. So this shows you whether the pass is at 39 or at long line. It will show all the passes bundled together for the same data. That often works if all you want to do is see what yesterday's driving is like. But if you drove yesterday and you drove the pros in the morning and you drove the kids in the afternoon, you may well want to see that data separately so that it makes more sense. And to do that, you can group it by the speed you were at, which will show you results for 36 miles an hour, results for 34, and separate results for 32 and slower. Or you can group it by the rope length, which will show you separate results for what I call short line, between 38 and 43, for midline, between 28 off and 35, and for longer line, 22 off and longer. So I would suggest when you're starting, you just show the data to get a quick view. But as you get more used to the data, I find that grouping it by speed or rope length can be very helpful. Okay, a really important bit, and some of you have already gone on to Portal and mailed me saying, I can't see my data. And this is the #1 reason for this. And I will explain about driver identification. So WizTims, for all of last year and the year before, through WaterSki Connect, sends the driver name and the driver AWSA ID to the SurePath rover for each pass. And it's the same around the world. WaterSki Scoring does the same. However, that means you are dependent on the scorer being completely accurate. I know there are scorers in the room, and I'm not trying to disparage the scorers, but they're busy people. And if the drivers swap out of the boat without telling them or something happens, you may well have the incorrect driver name in the rover when you're driving. Or in theory, you might not be at the tournament and the scorer could make a mistake and your name is associated with something. And we couldn't guarantee to you, the drivers, that the data is for you and for you alone. So at the start of last year, with James's kind help on SurePath, we implemented a system where you log in on the rover. So once you're registered on the drivers.ski website, that information is available in the rover. And when you jump in the rover, you select your name, you enter your 4-digit PIN that only you know, and now you are logged in and you are guaranteed that the data that comes into the portal is you and you alone. Now that was rolled out kind of halfway through last year. I would say it is still probably not the majority of tournaments drivers are logging in. So we still have a lot of data where the data is coming from scoring, where the driver's name is coming from scoring. So this tick box says, okay, include the data when the driver name comes only from scoring. So there's a caveat that maybe the scoring name wasn't correct, but it will show you all your data.
Hey,
Once you are, yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah, before we get into the data, yeah. So real quick, Donald, 2 questions. One, for the USA, do you have to be a member of AWSA to obtain PIN to use portal for practice?
Correct.
You do. You have to be a member of AWSA to get your PIN so that you can use the portal for practice.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, we need a unique identifier so that we know who the driver is. And that in the USA is the USA Water Ski ID. Sorry, I keep calling it AWSA ID. It's the USA Water Ski ID.
So
for the it is also for those drivers who officiate internationally. There is a code from IWWF EMS, which is also linked to your profile. I do that manually after you register. I make sure that if you have an IWWF official ID, it is also linked to your portal.
Perfect.
To your profile.
Thank you, Jerry. Jackson, any other questions, Jerry, on that before I go to the next question? Okay, next question is, and then I'll let you go back, Donald. Peter Dahl, can 2 or more people have the same PIN, or is there a check to stop that from happening?
No, it's a 4-digit PIN. There's nothing to stop 2 people having the same PIN for their bank card when they go to the ATM. So, no, it's a 4-digit PIN. You choose what you want, but you on the rovers will go through. You search for your name, you find it, and then you must enter your 4-digit PIN, and it matches in real time with your portal profile. And if it doesn't match, it doesn't let you.
And Donald, you might mention too, I mean, pins, you can go into your driver profile, which Donald will probably mention here briefly. You can change your PIN at any time, just like your bank ATM card.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to move on if there's no more. Oh, wait, we got another question just came in. Sorry, guys. Will the 2-factor authentication be sent over phone numbers someday instead of just being an email?
Yeah, we're running this on a pretty tight budget. We're very grateful to Jose Antonio and the IWF for funding it. But it is on the list. But for now, it's email only.
Okay, and then link to the login page. Also need to know how to obtain login credentials. Login ID is USA Water Ski number. How do I select or set up a PIN?
Yeah, okay. Well, if we want to just cover that off real quick. So from the home page, when you log in, down here, you've got my profile. It says check your personal information, view and change your rover PIN. So if you click on the my profile page button, it's not particularly sexy page, but it has your current rover PIN, and there's a box down here to say change it to. And you simply type it in there, change the PIN, and if you then walk down to the boat, that will be your new PIN for login on the rover.
Randy Walston, any other questions on that? Was that clear?
Okay, let's continue.
Okay, the real big takeaway for this checkbox at the moment, most people need to check this on, and I may even check it on by default, because not everyone has been logging in religiously, certainly for 2023 tournaments. But we are strongly encouraging people to log in every time they get in the boat and log out every time they get out of the boat. The other important,
This is Dave Allen. Just one quick note about that. One of the things that I did add to Wisdom's this winter is that on the scorer screen, it will show the driver name that's been assigned within Wisdom's and also the driver name that has come back with the deviation information, so the skier in a glance will be able to see if those two things are the same, so that if they are different, they can check with the boat or fix the assignments or kind of resolve whatever that conflict is. So there'll be a quick at a glance that their confirmation that the data is the same.
Fantastic. I think that's really important. And certainly I know you're much better in the USA at this and have been for a long time. In Europe, we don't have the same credit system for officials, so there's much less impetus on scorers to have the officials correct in the event schedule. And this is something we're going to be pushing very strongly that they need to. So the other thing, all the data that comes through, we use the score that gets sent by WisTims after each pass to restrict the data. So obviously, if someone scores one buoy, we don't want to show the data for the boat when it went past 3, 4, 5, and 6 buoy. So there's a huge amount of pre-processing in the back end of this system that works through all that data and restricts it only to what is appropriate. So we know for every pass whether a score was sent after the pass or not. If you tick on this box, which is ticked on by default, that's the only data you get. So it throws away the data when you drove up and down the lake for a simulation pass. It throws away the data that was there when the boat drove up and down the lake early in the morning. If you go and drive a practice session and you want to see that data, you need to tick this off, because none of your practice data will have scoring validation done to it. And the caveat of that, obviously, is that your practice data, the system will always assume that the score was 6. It will show you full data for the pass. So if you are really taking it seriously and the skier falls around 2 buoy, you want to drive straight for the rest of the course, so you'll get some funky numbers. Couple of little bits here. There's the function to show a peer report for your tournament, where it will show you 2 separate reports, one for you and the other report, an anonymized report of the other drivers at that tournament. It's a way of comparing your driving on a given weekend when you know the weather was the same for everybody, and just seeing what the other drivers at that tournament were doing. We'll see how much that's used and whether it's something worthwhile. And finally, there's little minimal results, which gives you just this quick snapshot numeric results, and we'll come to that later. Okay, so if there's any questions on that setup, if not, I'll move on to actually looking at some data. We're good. So we'll do this as simple as we're just going to select the tournament one day, Saturday, September 2nd, in a Western tournament. And we're not going to change anything we've done here, except to be sure we're going to click on include data when driver name comes only from scoring, just in case Will wasn't logged in this day. And we just say get the data. Now, as we do that, it's written down below every time. If pop-ups are blocked on your browser, you will not see the results. So the results opens up in separate tabs in your browser. A lot of browsers for security have pop-ups blocked, and in that case, you won't see the results. It's pretty simple to switch off pop-up blocking on your browser. Just Google pop-up unblock and your browser name, and you'll find detailed instructions out there on the web. So we click on Get Data. It's fetching the data. It's then going to summarize the data and then present it to us.
Fair to mention that sometimes these take a little bit of time to build, so don't think it's
not and guys, obviously, if 235 of you sign off this call and immediately go in and look for the summary data for your entire 2023 season, it may slow things down. So take it easy. And here's the data results. You can see we've put a lot of effort into making it graphical. The early versions were all numeric, and while it's the same data, A picture really does tell 1,000 words in this scenario. So that's the page, and I've taken the same page and just put it through in my notes to help explain what's going on. So the first section, pretty simple. It just gives you the number of passes that were driven, the number intolerance, the number out of tolerance because an individual buoy was out of tolerance, and the number of passes out of tolerance because the cumulative deviation was out of tolerance. And of course it's will, so they're all in tolerance as expected. Second number we look at is the movement. Okay, and this has become more important as the more we've looked at it. It's a real nice number. It's not a rule book number. There's no tolerance on this. It's not mentioned in the rules. It's not mentioned in tech notes. It's a portal number. What it does, we wanted a way, because a seasoned driver can take a glance at some breadcrumbs from SurePath and have a really good idea if that's a good pass or a bad pass, if it's smooth or if it's twitchy. And this is a number that represents that view. So the system looks at every single point from the breadcrumbs, and it just for each point, it calculates the absolute movement, left or right, from the previous point. So did the boat move half an inch? Did it move a quarter of an inch from point to point? And remember, there's a point measured, James will tell you the exact in imperial, but I'm saying it's 12 inches, something like that. So it's pretty close. And this number simply adds up all of those differences to give you a number. So if you drove an absolutely straight line on a cable down the middle, that would be 0. We don't care if it's center, if it's left or right. We're just talking about the movement of the boat. And I've got some examples that really highlight this. Big takeaway, scores around 120, 130 are very good. I've seen scores down into the 60s. I've seen scores up into the 4, 5, and 600s. And as drivers, you will look at these and go, yeah, that's not pretty, or yeah, that's real nice. So here are some examples. Just blow this up. So top example here, this is our slalom course. And on all these pictures you see, this is a real life pass. The blue lines here are each buoy and out to maximum tolerance, 25 centimeters. So that is to scale. So something halfway here is halfway to 25. So the movement on this pass was 392. And to start with, you can see there's quite a bit of movement, but more importantly, if I zoom in, you can see that from point to point to point to point, the boat is moving a lot. Not 20 centimeters, but it's moving an inch or 2 inches between points all the time. It is the classic definition of a twitchy driver, and they get a big movement number. Same, another high 300s, and it's the same thing. It's twitchy. As we come down into the mid 100, 147 on this, it starts getting smoother, and obviously it's also more central, so there's not as much movement going on. And now we come down into 110, and you can see that, okay, the driver's a bit right down the course, but in terms of smooth, it's pretty nice. And here's a 69 movement number, and it's down the middle within, 2-3 inches of center, and you can see the twitch is not there. And this is just a zoomed in version of the worst pass and the best pass, and you can see the twitch that's here and the smoothness in the good pass. So movement is a number that you'll see. Like I say, there's no tolerances, but over time, you will get a really good feel for how it can help identify good passes and bad passes. Okay, the next and probably one of the most important graphs on the page is the cumulative deviation. So this graph groups the full course deviation number across all the data you're looking at into these different buckets. So we have a bucket from 0 to 15 centimeters, 15 to 30, 30 to 49, and 49 plus, which is obviously out of tolerance. And the same, if the cumulative number is negative, we have a bucket from 0 to 15, 15 to 30, 30 to 49. So in this example, 51% of the passes we're looking at, the cumulative full course deviation was between 0 and 15 centimeters. And the results are calculated pro rata based on the skier score. So in this example, if the skier scores 3.5 buoys, well, we look at the cumulative for buoy 4, tolerance is 40. And if, for instance, the cumulative measurement was 35 at buoy 4, that's 87.5% of tolerance. So we calculate a full course deviation of 87.5%, which is 43 centimeters, and that would go into the 43 centimeter bucket. So you can talk about the numbers in terms of full course deviation because we do pro rata the deviations if the skier scores less than 6. Another nice one here, which is real at a glance what it's like. So this is left and right. So it displays the boat's position, left, center, right, center, all the way through the course. So this is every point we get from the breadcrumbs is measured, and we plot how often we were at that point. So it should be a nice bell curve. The narrower and the sharper the bell curve, the less the boat moved around from left to right. So there are numbers underneath there, -5, -15 over here where the orange is, and +15 over the edge of the orange here. So you're looking for a nice, smooth, pointed bell curve. And obviously you would like it to be centered around 0. This one, you can see that it's centered ever so slightly to the right, but it's a pretty graph. The next graph you come to is the positive negative. And we spent about 2 years trying to find the right words to describe when you were at a set of boat guides, are you towards the skier buoy or away from the skier buoy? Are you positive or negative? So positive means towards the skier buoy. Negative means away from the skier buoy. This number is calculated not from the breadcrumbs, it is calculated from the deviation measurement at each buoy and then plotted into these bars. Okay, so down below you have a summary of all those passes you're looking at, and there's 2 bits of important information here. The red line in the middle is the median boat position at each buoy. And we use median instead of average because average will tend to hide important data. So in this example, if at buoy 1, we took 6 passes and the boat was at -2, +2, +2, +2, +2, +2, the average of those 6 numbers is 0. But the median of those numbers is 2, which in layman's terms is which number occurs the most. So it's a good number for summarizing these passes. It gives you a very good indication of where you were at each buoy over the summary of data you're looking at. And you can see it's a lovely straight line down the center, as the rules would ask for. The other important information here is the pink area, which is the maximum and minimum boat location at each buoy. So what was the most left you were at each buoy and what was the most right you were at each buoy? The system takes the 95th percentile, just as I say, to get rid of some of the crazies. But you will see at a glance, if you compare 2 different days of driving, a good day and a bad day, you know, the narrower this picture is, the better. Okay, I will just demonstrate this next bit in the results page before we move on. So when we scroll down here, all the data is available numerically. So for the stats nerds out there, you can download all this. It will pop straight out to Excel in a download, and you can look at it. Skier's name is there, speed, rope length, all the buoy deviations, on all the statistical numbers I use, center, right, left, all of that. All of this is searchable and sortable. So we can search it, we can sort it by clicking on the pass or any of the header lines. And one of the beautiful things, if we click on any of these individual passes, we get the breadcrumbs for that pass laid out on screen. So you can flick through. If you see, wow, I've got some big numbers there, what was going on, you will see the breadcrumbs for that pass just by clicking on the pass.
3 questions, Donald. Go ahead.
Okay, 1, will practice measurements no score to calculate cum dev? If not, does that affect results?
Yeah, as I said earlier, in practice, there is no score from the scoring system. So the system assumes a score of 6. And it will give deviations all the way through 6 buoy, and it will give full course deviation. So like I say, if you're really on top of your results and you're taking it very, very seriously and the skier falls around 4, you might just want to stay down the middle until you get through the exit gates.
Yeah, good call. The next question, if the slalom course survey is off, is there a flag for that anywhere?
We'll talk about that briefly, but go ahead, Donald.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's outside the scope of the portal. What we are very aware of is that there are lots of reasons why you might have a bad day at the office. And only one of those reasons is that you're just having a bad day at the office. So what we are going to introduce is the ability back here where you do your searching, that you can add some comments to a particular day's driving to say, oh, you know, the boat was unbalanced, it wasn't tracking straight, it was a disaster, or the course was moving around all over the place, or it was blowing a force 7 gale out of the northwest, just so that you can remind yourself, okay, that there are extenuating circumstances for that day. But to answer the question, you know, garbage in, garbage out. If SurePath is giving you bad numbers because the survey is done incorrectly, all the portal is doing is reporting the SurePath numbers.
Okay, thank you. Will the movement number be included in the rover stats so you can see that number while driving?
Not currently planned, but I can talk to James offline and you know.
Okay.
I'll throw him under the bus.
Sorry, James.
That's okay. What is a good average for center?
A good average?
Yeah, Ron Warman.
We talking about so I can tell you where I try and go. Typically, I look for single digits at the buoy, anything less than 10. And I look for the 0, that green area there, 0 to 15 centimeters. I look to try and get something there. If I'm, 20 somewhere, I don't freak out about it. But you can see I try and stay somewhere at that 0 to 15. You'll occasionally get, a few negatives, and you'll occasionally get, some higher positives. But again,
I mean, okay, well, it might just be an opportune time for me. Let me just fire up another browser just to, as I said, Glenn Martin was very kind to let me use his data. So I can show you data from the Friday of the Worlds where there were some really good scores. I'm just going to sign in here and show it to you. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, I just have to stop sharing and share another screen, which I'm doing now.
Jerry Jackson did put a response in the chat. Men and women's world record Q is around 25 centimeters.
Okay, so this is Friday, open men at the Worlds. Big scores. All the skiers were happy with the driving, and I think it shows what can make the skiers happy, but also look like this. Okay, so 183 passes, all intolerance, a movement of 112, 49% of cumulative within 0 to 15, and 43% 15 to 30. You know, so only 5% getting anywhere close to cumulative tolerance. You can see the prettiness of this left and right graph, how narrow it is. The same, the positive, negative, and just look at that minimum, maximum boat path. You know, that is what a driver like Glenn Martin with 41 and 43 off skiers can do. And I think, you know, with all this data, what we are trying to do is produce examples and have them available on the website so that you can answer those questions. We can't tell you what is good or great. There are no measures for that. But what we can do is show you the data for some tournaments that you know what the skiers were like and what the performances were like, so you can draw your own conclusions. Okay, we go back to this one. Okay, so that's just showing you what the basic data looks like. The next thing to show you, well, I think just real quickly. So the tabs that opened up, the search tab always stays where it is. So if you want to look at two different tournaments, you do your find and you find that tournament and it opens up in a results page. But I can simply go back to the search tab, click on a different tournament, find the data, and it will open that in a new page. So I can have multiple tabs open with multiple days or tournaments so that it's real easy for me to compare a couple of different days. Those tabs stay there, and it's important that you don't shut them down because then you have to kind of start again. But that shows you that's one day, and right beside it, I have the tab from the other day, so I can flick between those and compare and see what was different between those days. So that's the basic data. As I said before, sometimes if you've been driving pro skiers in the morning and kids in the afternoon, that may hide some stuff. So we have the options to either group the data by speed or by rope length. And just a couple of notes on this. So if I select the group by speed, this is going to show me results for 58, 36 miles an hour, results for 34, and results for 32 and slower. It'll show me three separate sets of results. I can tell the system, okay, well, what do I want to see all the rope lengths within that? And you can tick those on or off. So you can say, just show me short line, show me mid line, show me long line. So maybe all I want to see is my short line pulls for yesterday.
Yeah, Donald.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. On my screen, this is from JD Long. On my screen, the menu shows only quick data. I don't have the tournament or options tab.
Okay, let's take that offline. If she wants to send me an email, I will get straight to it after the call.
Okay. Thank you, JD. Oh, and Doug says I have the same.
Okay. We will check that out direct.
Okay, and we'll have another hour going through Will's information. So, you know, oh, and Scott Larson says same for him. So there's something going on. So Donald can check out when he gets through this, you guys, and maybe he can come back in on second hour.
If you could send me an email, info@drivers.ski, it'll just let me check out your user and make sure there's not something funky going on in the registration.
What was that email again? Donald, you
broke. Oh, actually, I'm just thinking, maybe you could ask those guys, have they just signed up in the last 20 minutes?
Well, Scott Larson was a national driver. You've been on forever.
Anyway, look, if you send me an email, I will check it out and I'll get straight back to you.
Okay, cool. Okay.
So we say we want to group by speed here, and we say I want to see short line and midline. Or you can say group it together by rope, and then you decide what speeds you want to include in that data. So we'll do this by speed because it makes most sense. And we're saying, okay, hide the data for 32 miles an hour because I just don't care. So now when we look at that data, instead of showing one set of results on the page, it's going to show two.
Everybody's logged in while you're doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now it has shown us, instead of a single graph, it shows us the passes driven at 36 miles an hour, at 34 miles an hour, and 32 and slower. The movement for each of those speed groups. It shows us the cumulative deviations for 36 and for 34. It shows us the left-right graph for 36 and 34, the positive minus, and it shows us the boat path for each of those. So it's a nice way of comparing you're driving at different speeds or at different road lengths. So that's that. Okay, now we have the quick results, which is designed really for use on a cell phone. It doesn't have the pretty graphs, but if we take the same data we were looking at, there's no options in terms of what to show or not show. Just tick the day you want, get the data, and that will pop up, but I can show it to you here. It's going to be a screen like this. So it just has what we consider to be the most important numbers. So it shows you the number of passes and the number of passes out of tolerance for buoy or cumulative deviation. Sorry, that just popped up, those numbers. It shows you your average cumulative number. And I do have a warning here on that average cumulative. The more data you look at, and it's the reason we use those graphs of the cumulative buckets, because it doesn't hide anything. The average cumulative will tend towards zero the more data you look at, because you'll have some pluses, some minuses, and that does average tend to down to zero. We are working on some other metrics that will help not hide that information. But for now, it's not bad. You got your average movement number, your center percentage, left, right percentage. So this is golden. If you just want a view of where was the boat yesterday? Was I down the middle? Yeah, 63% of the time down the center. And the center is a channel about 2 inches left and right. That's what we call center. And you can see at a glance here that on this day's driving, Will was ever so slightly favoring the right-hand side. So he could correct that and move back. And while you will get those numbers after every pass with SurePath, they can get lost in the big picture sometimes because you're looking at them pass by pass, and it can be really helpful to look at a summary for the day and go, okay, yeah, on average, I was a little bit to the right, and the positive and negative numbers. So that's the quick data, really designed for use on your cell phone and just to get you a quick snapshot of what the day was like. Okay, and finally, the new feature that we introduced in the last couple of weeks, data by tournaments. So a lot of numbers on this page, but they're really useful numbers. So to explain them, I'll go back to my notes. And so you can select the year you want to look at. Now, just a note for crazy Americans who change their ski year in the middle of the calendar year. This is going to work for you because 2023, I'm just trying to remember, 2023. Yeah, So it will work for you, because when you say 24, it takes the ski year as opposed to the calendar year. So it should tie in with what you do. Clicking around, sorry. Here. Okay, so if we could only choose two numbers to describe a pass, the most useful two numbers we found are the cumulative average for the pass and the movement number that we've talked about. If you give me those two numbers for a pass, I will give you a really good indication of if it was a good pass or a bad pass. At a very minimum, it will give you an indication that that's something I would like to look at to see what was going on. So this report shows you those two numbers. It shows you the total number of passes in the tournament you're looking at. So for this IWWF tournament in 23, it shows the total number of passes in the tournament, the total percentage of passes out of tolerance, the average cumulative across that tournament, all drivers, not just you, all drivers, and the average movement across that tournament, all drivers. It then shows you your specific numbers for that tournament. So the number of passes you drove, the percentage out of tolerance for you, the cumulative average for you, and the average movement for you. So these are really useful numbers. As with all these things, if you're looking at all of that data across the tournament, maybe it's hiding some stuff. So you can also say, just show me 36K numbers. And now all these numbers have changed just to show you the numbers for passes at 36 miles an hour. Or just show me 38 and shorter passes. Doesn't matter what speed, they'll all be in there. And these numbers have all changed to show you your number of passes at short line, the percent out of tolerance, the cumulative average, and the movement at that. This is all, once again, sortable and searchable. So if you're looking at your movement and trying to become a smoother driver, simply by sorting by movement, we get to see a tournament, and you look here and say, okay, I drove 7 passes and my average movement for short line was 247. That's higher than normal. And simply then by clicking on that line, it opens the find for that tournament to show you the usual detailed graphs that I've been showing you today. So you can drill down from a tournament that you think needs a bit of looking at to the individual data for that tournament, and obviously down below, skier by skier and pass by pass information. So I could take that data now, once it opens up. So here you see, not such a good day at the office, more stuff out of tolerance, not very many passes. So 1 pass will be a big percentage. And down below, we have all the data that we could export and analyze to our heart's content. So a nice, easy way to get from a tournament to the detailed information and then to the detailed pass information. And that is pretty much a whistle-stop view of the data that's produced.
So thank you. We did have a comment during the presentation. Somebody was asking about the level of the clinic. So this clinic was originally designed for regular and senior drivers. And anyway, during that time frame, we had some folks who had said, hey, I need a clinic. If I don't get a clinic before end of year, I will lose my rating. So it is above some of your heads, and especially for folks who are out there as aspiring drivers. But our goal here is to give you at least some idea that this data does exist out there, and that, in the future, for example, you may be able to drive in practice and collect some of this data. And when it becomes time to become a driver, someone can look at this data and say, yeah, you're good to go, without having to go to an actual on the water kind of clinic where, you have to bring 3 or 4 skiers and somebody stands there and watches you. So anyway, I apologize if it's over your head in some cases.
Thanks, Will. Let's see, Robert Howerton, if I'm driving just practice, what do I need to do to push data to the server so I can pull my reports?
We'll cover that. We'll cover that. But Donald had mentioned earlier that there is a place when you log in as a driver and you go in, you can put in an event name. You can put in practice or the day's date. And I'll show you some examples of that as we move through the SurePath.
Okay. Next question, Randy Walson. Why is deviation measured at the buoy rather than center line?
It is actually measured, it's measured from the center line and it's measured at the buoy. So when the pylon essentially is 90 degrees perpendicular to the buoy in an area which goes from there out 5 meters, we're saying the person is at the apex of the turn. And that's, and we can go through that if we have time. I have some slides in the SurePath presentation, but we can talk about specifically where the skier is and where the boat is and where the pylon is, but it is measured from center line to the boat antenna when the skier is at the buoy.
Okay, a few more questions. Scott Larson, this is actually a question that's come up along the way. Is the boat model that you drove for specific event captured or sortable within the data? And I know Donald and Will, you guys have an answer to that because we've had that as, hey, it was windy that day, or I was driving a boat and it was did it. So anyway.
Yeah, the boat data is captured, assuming it's entered in WisTims or in Waterski scoring around the world. I haven't presented it here. It's a good idea and it's going straight on the list of things to do.
Okay, thank you, Donald. And then Will's going to cover the status of the jump data reporting in the portal later this morning. So let's hop, that'll be a fuller explanation here soon. Jen Sango, I'm an assistant driver. Class C, this just moved on me. And I found some tournament data from last year. How easy and quick is it to turn it on for practice, which we'll address and it'll all
We'll cover that, Jen.
Again. Yep. That was really good. This is awesome, impressive.
I like those questions.
You can't improve what you can't measure. Dave, that's great. I'm a driver. Just okay, we already addressed that. Let's continue down. Well done. Thanks for all your work. That's all I've got. Howerton, you have down a word backup, comma. I don't know if you had a question, Robert Howerton. Okay. Hearing nothing, we'll move on.
Okay, Donald, anything else or any other questions for Donald? Donald, you gonna stay in for the balance of the discussion?
I'll be here for most of it, yeah. I'm just flicking through my notes to make sure. That's... Yep, no, that's me.
Okay, I am going to try and move back to sharing my screen again.
Okay, I'll stop.
And I think I'm sharing. I want to start from the current slide.